I think it's just a really powerful thing that humanity can do, is like deem something valuable denote it for memory, for, it having meaning, for a significance in somebody's life, and then that kind of being passed on and changed and altered.
That is the voice of Jaydan Moore, and you're listening to A Creative Excuse, presented by Echo a Mano. This is Frank Rose.
And I'm Cara Duvall. Jaydan's exhibition is on view at Echo a Mano through May 31st.
In this episode, we talk nostalgia, tragedy versus comedy, and Jaydan's journey in metals.
We'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, or even leave a review. It really helps.
Thanks for listening.
Frank, how long have you been doing the podcast?
Well, we started a long time ago and took a long break. So it started during COVID. So like 2020, did it for like
started before then. Started before then.
That's true.
Yeah.
But we did it for like maybe a year. It was during COVID that I stopped, actually.
Yeah.
That's when a lot of people started podcasts.
Yeah, totally.
And then stopped for a while, and then we restarted, Cara and I, like in January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
it's a recent re-up.
January of last year.
Oh. Was it January of last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been great. I mean, I think like, having like a two-person dynamic really, makes it really engaging. And we try to do one for every exhibition, so it keeps it kind of focused. And so it's been good.
Nice. That's awesome. That's super great. Yeah. I'm glad that your brain also got a little bit confused on time, because it sounds like you're on the Eastern time of your podcast. Right, like you're one year behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Time is weird these days.
Time's a weird thing. Yeah.
I don't know if it's just that happens as you get older, or if truly we have slipped into a portal and time acts very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read this amazing book called Pip Pip, and it was about how different cultures think about time. Mm-hmm. And it was like just list upon list of like how different cultures, and it was pretty great to like be like, oh yeah, like that's kind of how I feel nowadays, or oh yeah, that, like it was just kind of like this shift of
Did it talk about different. Rubber time?
I don't think it talked about rubber time.
Okay.
I would love to know.
So I can't remember where I heard about rubber time, but I want to say that this is a phenomenon in the Amazon. And it's this I hate to say concept, because it's not a concept. It's actually how they are with time, and that time stretches, and that it's elastic, so that it can be very quick and short, kind of tense, and it can get very long and stretched out as well. So like time is rubbery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so amazing, because like that is like, I mean, that's relativity, right? Like that's like Einstein's kind of theory is like time will speed up and slow down. And like for a culture to just like already be thinking about that and like that way without any math, or it's like really powerful,
Yeah. For just to observe.
Yeah. It's time. I mean, your work has a lot to do with time too, right? Like in memory and like usage of objects, and like how people have used them in the memories, and the time is just woven through all of that too.
I think about that a lot with like time, but then also like meaning on top of object, right? Like I was just talking to somebody, I can't remember, but we were talking about like platters, but we were also talking about like heirlooms that like they have the value of like whomever owns them, right? And then they get passed down, and there's certain things that those people might really deem valuable and stuff like that. But that signifier can disappear very, very quickly. Like it can just kind of all of a sudden be, like lost into the ether. But like there's only the material kind of dings and scratches that kind of show how valuable it was to like the previous owner.
Right.
I don't know, when I first started, I had a lot of, when I was in grad school, I had a lot of like, oh, you're treading closely to nostalgia. And I don't really have nostalgia for it. I think it's just a really powerful thing that humanity can do, is like deem something valuable for, denote it for memory, for, like, it having meaning for a significance in somebody's life, and then that kind of being passed on and changed and altered. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of in my last year of college, I did this project using like vintage photographs. They started with photographs that I found in like thrift stores and things like that, and scanning them. And I mean, they really had, that sense of losing the specific meaning it was attached to, right? Like the family that it was originally photographed.
Yeah.
And what I was doing was like trying to recontextualize them with like scientific drawings and animals, and just creating narrative on top of things that used to be super personal, but are no more. Yeah.
And like so personal, like with a face, right? Like, like the context of that, like I'm working with kind of more of a symbology of like a material, right? Like, or the cultural significance of a material, but like personal image, like, is so interesting to like see that kind of get departed to like secondhand shops and get reused, and see similarities in people, like as you work with, like, I think that's, I can go on a long-winded, I think of this conversation that I had with this person. We were talking about like, what are the things that are like, we find, find interesting, but like has no context of like it's probably in the background of things that I think about that then plays into the work. And one of the things is I think about, it's just like the finiteness of like how much our molecules can be a thing, right? Like, and so like, we're just messing with DNA too, and like how you can have similarities in a person, like just like an heirloom platter, can have similarities as well. And I think in the end, like, I hope people take away that, we're all dealing with a lot of the same stuff, and we have a lot more in common than not,
Yeah. What is it? Maybe one of you know this, that there's only 19 or something original faces, and I'd heard this, and that from those original faces, it's just all, this
like a mix
of like, yeah. And that's why you meet someone and you're like, oh, how do I know you?
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah.
On that note, I heard once that we have a finite, like we have a finite amount of molecules, and making a body takes only it's an infinite thing, but it's like, it's still a finite number. And so there is a possibility in this world that there is another version of you in the universe, because there's only so many times that you can like take those molecules and make them the same. So I don't like, my wife is like, that gives her utter anxiety. And to me, I'm like, oh, there's another version of me who's, was here on time, like, so I can be a little bit better at like, I can be take a little bit of solace that like, like somebody else did it. Another version of me did it right.
Sweet. Did you, are you in, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're into sci-fi.
Yeah.
Okay.
A bit. Yeah.
Oh, did you ever see the movie Another Earth?
No.
Okay, so this is a movie. This is a movie to watch. It's by Britt Marling, or Britt Marling is the actress.
She's in it. I don't think she created this one.
She didn't.
Another world or another universe?
Another Earth.
Another Earth. Okay.
Yeah, and so it kind of, the premise is based on kind of what you just said, essentially, but it's sci-fi. So, another Earth appears one day in the sky. And then as soon as that happens, there is a replica of everything that's on this Earth, on that Earth. And then the timelines, the trajectory of, say, you and this other Jaydan split, and you make different choices and things like that. But it follows this one character and these choices that she's made, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see that.
It's great. It's sci-fi done right, where like they have a premise that allows you to just sort of like, suspend disbelief, right? I think that's what sci-fi is great at. And then really gets you into, the psychological of like, it really messes people up to think about, there's another exact person of me, and like what happens when you make different choices, and like, oh my God, everything I do is consequential, and
and happenstance, but also like does have matter of fact of like where you go.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool. This reminds me of, have you guys ever seen Stranger Than Fiction?
I don't know.
Have we?
What is it?
It's my favorite movie, Stranger Than Fiction. It's Will Ferrell in a slightly serious role. And the story is he is a character in a book, and he kind of all of a sudden hears the narrator for the book that he's in.
Oh, I heard about it. I don't think I've seen it. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites, and it's like a bit of like on that kind of sci-fi, but not, like it's reality, but all he's hearing a voice, and he's like, I now feel like I'm crazy, but I'm being narrated to, and it's not my voice, and it's him trying to figure out if he's crazy, how and how he changes his life because he's hearing this voice, and it's a really good one.
So it's like the never-ending story, but with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
mine is Atreyu.
And Falcor.
Yeah.
Well, the similarity there
creatures.
is like fate. Like it sounds like, right? Like, and like how you navigate, things that seem like you don't have control over, and thinking about, what do I have control over? What is free will?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It plays with a little bit of like spirituality, a little science too, because he starts trying to do some research. So he starts talking to people, like, and so it starts to play this really interesting thing. He talks to Dustin Hoffman, who is an English professor, to like try to denote who's writing the book. And so Dustin Hoffman's kind of being this scientist where he's trying to like ask him questions, like to hypothesize like who it is. So it's and then there's like the fate thing, right? Like that there's this like author writing the book, and what are they wanting to do with this, right? So they talk about like is it a comedy or a drama, and so like it's this really interesting play.
Who is it? Was it Shakespeare that said the only difference between a comedy and tragedy is that the characters in a comedy figure out what's going on by the end of the play? Tragedy
that's really
doesn't.
interesting. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
That's
I
really
think
great.
It's Shakespeare. I could be wrong, but like
that
essentially, that all these horrible, horrible things happen. But if at the end, they wake up and they figure out what's going on, then it's funny.
Yeah.
But if they don't, it's not funny.
Poor guys.
Yeah. That's amazing. So it's really just the understanding that can make it comical.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And the sound score. Because that just lets you know. That lets you know what you're supposed to feel.
Right.
That's so perfect. I always say, like, whenever my wife's rewatching stuff, I'm always like, oh, they're playing the plinks and the plonks right now. Like, that's the little notes of like sadness, really laying on the plinks and plonks right now. Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, let's go back in time. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Oh, that's a good question. I grew up in the Bay Area, California. I grew up in Antioch, California. It's kind of like when I was growing up, it was like the last little bit of suburbia in the Bay Area. So it was kind of like a commuter area to go into the city. So I grew up there in the 80s. I was born in 1986. And so I lived there for all of my childhood. We lived in the same home. And so I lived there, and then I went to undergrad at California College of the Arts. when I was 18. And I sometimes talk about my childhood as the tombstone stuff, which I can get into as well. My family.
The next question was like, were your parents creative people? Were they makers?
Yeah.
And
my parents were not. I mean, they were in certain senses. That I should actually retract that. My mom sells tombstones. So my family's been selling tombstones for 4 generations. It's been in the business. My family immigrated from Portugal and then kind of landed in the Bay Area. There's actually more Portuguese people in the Bay in California than there are Portuguese people. And so my grandfather immigrated there, and then my family kind of started selling tombstones in that area. And so I would say my mom's creative in the sense of like helping people make accommodations, right? Like, so kind of thinking about how their name's going to be placed, the structure of the stone, and kind of what's being placed on that. So the quotes, the kind of imagery, that kind of stuff. So
it's kind of like design.
Yeah, pretty much. She's kind of, she doesn't do. My grandfather did a little bit of like the sandblasting and the carving and stuff like that, but she's really there to kind of like help structure what the person wants and work with the cemetery, because the cemetery usually has parameters as well. And so she kind of is a person to go between those two, and then kind of has that jobbed out from a quarry to like send in the final piece. And then my dad worked for UPS for 40 some odd years. And so he's very good at, again, design stuff. So he was somebody who was kind of making UPS as efficient as possible. So he was a management, but he would work on how many railroad tracks do they actually need to get pieces to different parts of the country. He worked on kind of software development, kind of like how to make some things efficient. And then I would say his real creativity came from a lot of his hobbies. So like he redid our backyard and kind of landscaped it, kind of designed our pool, made kind of like a porch, he did a lot of that stuff. He also rebuilt a 1967 Shelby Mustang. So he did stuff like that where he loves baking, like cooking. So that was kind of where his creativity kind of lied. So so those are my parents, but my real connection to the creative world was my aunt and uncle. My aunt and uncle are both metalsmiths. So Marilyn and Jack Da Silva are their names. They've been in the field.
I didn't know they were your aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
They're the best aunt and uncle to ever have. They're really great. They're really sweet, and they've just been like some of the best supporters in the whole wide world. And so I got to grow up seeing their work while they were making it. So we'd be at Christmas, and they'd have a piece to get done for a show, and so they kind of bring out the parts and kind of show me what they were working on. And so I was pretty quiet as a kid, and I don't think I kind of said that I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't really know how to I take some drawing classes. I did some stuff in high school. But it was really Marilyn who helped me kind of finally bite into this thing that I had been talking about doing. She got me a pre-college class at California College of the Arts where she taught for, I think, 30 some odd years. And so she gave me the pamphlet and said, write down whatever you want and I'll see what I can do. And so I took jewelry metal arts, and it was summertime, and she wasn't coming in. And so the last week of the class, she came in and saw that I was in the class and like came over to me and was like, "You didn't have to take metals if you didn't want to." And I was like, no, I actually really wanted to and really wanted to learn it. And so, and then from then on out, I've been in metals for my whole life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I know them through Bob Ebbendorf, who lives here in Santa Fe. He's
another amazingly sweet, kind person.
Incredible guy. Yeah. That's so cool. So you really had it was like a direct sort of inspiration.
Yeah, direct inspiration and kind of like drive to like really kind of dive in. And if it wasn't even school, then Jack was giving like he would do summer workshops at a YMCA camp. So I helped him kind of build the shop at a YMCA camp and then take them down. So I was kind of learning how to be a tech. So I really I tell my a lot of people I had kind of a war path for the first chunk of my career. It was like just full obsession. Like I went to California College of the Arts. I was in metals from day one. Took it every semester. Did some woodworking, but and then also worked as a bench jeweler along the way, and then took 1 year off while I was doing that, and then went to grad school. So it was kind of a full push. Like I do have some OCD, and so I think there was a pure obsession in there,
well, that
which
helps.
I'm proud of.
Yeah.
But also sometimes I'm like. When I'm talking to students, I'm like, also, I don't know if this is the healthiest thing in the world, like, there was some burnout there for a minute too, so, yeah.
It almost sounds like you had a strange, what's the word? Circumnavigating? No, strange apprenticeship. It was like,
yeah.
It's like your aunt and uncle took you under and you got to just soak in all that they knew, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it was really great, and CCA is still. I know that a lot of the teachers are still there. They had such a huge, amazing cohort of artists. So Marilyn was the head of the department. Curtis Arima is just an amazing jeweler and metalsmith, who was kind of my first teacher. He was my pre-college teacher. And I still get to talk with them all the time. And then they had like specialty classes that were run by different metalsmiths in the Bay Area. So like David Cole is production jeweler that I worked with also outside of school, but he also taught production. He taught jewelry history. Deb Lozier was an enamelist. So we had just like so many different styles of people who were making a living from jewelry and metalsmithing in the Bay Area, which, is not the priciest place in the world, like not the cheapest place in the world. And it really did feel like what you're saying. Like I kind of had so many different things that I could kind of grab onto and be like, oh, I like how they're doing it. I like how they're doing it. Like, like we had a really great group of jewelers who a lot of them are still making work, from that collection of people coming through that program.
Students?
Yeah. Like a few of my friends are still, have moved quite around the world country, but they are still making. And I even have friends who weren't in did some jewelry, but then also CCA were, sculpture, woodworking, advocating for a program that's kind of going through it right now. But it was a really great kind of place with the Oakland campus and the San Francisco campus.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that that the level of dedication and devotion and focus can usually result in really good work. I mean, I think that if you have that tendency, I mean, definitely the challenge is, work-life balance. Sure. It's like, how do you keep things in balance and live, and the other things that you might be wanting to do, have a family and.
I'm learning that right now.
Yeah.
I'm learning the family one right now.
Yeah, it can be a blessing and it can be a curse for sure.
Yeah, and I think like you guys are saying exactly the thing of like the balance of what is the balance you need at that time, right? Like I think it was perfect for me to kind of be just fully encompassed in that, and now it's a different world where I'm getting to learn like how to be there for students in different roles, and then also making my own work, and then also coming home and having that be a creative outlet too, of like learning how to grow a family and, like see what that would do to change what type of work I make,
Are you a dad yet?
Not a dad yet. A month to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were working on the nursery today. So.
And I think that, the balance, right, it should be individual. It's like, what is the balance for you, for the person? Because it can look really different person to person. And I think that someone who does decide to be an artist, that balance is going to look really different than someone who decides to do your typical 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
absolutely.
It's like, this is your job. I mean, not saying that people who do 9-to-5s, it's not their passion as well, but art is your passion. And so there's more commitment.
Exactly to that. Like, I think anybody can be an artist. It's just kind of trusting what is the time that you can dedicate to that, you know, like, and that could be, like, just to use myself as an example, like I was a full-time studio artist for about 10 years and I had a great time, but I also think at some points it got really tricky to like kind of keep being a production, keep the production going. And I think it's really interesting now to be an educator and have a little bit of that stress taken off of like, okay, well, like what's my commission coming? What's like, I got that next show coming. And so I feel like a little bit of the creativity has kind of popped a little bit more where I don't feel so like, okay, like I need to make something in that vein, maybe push the, like it was a lot of like that kind of stuff. And I think there are people who do that really well too, and I think that's a trust in knowing that like I have friends who are just so good at like keeping that wheel turning, and that can be error wise too, like, my 20s were different than my 30s, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So do you feel like at that time, you were thinking like a little bit more towards like what clients might want or what might sell? Keeping that in mind, if that's your, sole source of income.
Yeah. I mean, it was, I thankfully have a great gallery, galleries that I can have those conversations with and kind of at least get not just me being insular in the studio, but it was a lot of kind of checking in on like, okay, I made that piece. All right, how could we maybe variant that for the next show? My gallery shows or my shows were mostly like maybe 1 or 2 big shows a year, and kind of like trying to keep it fresh, but also, then there was a couple pieces that people really enjoyed. And so then, do we make a similar one? Because that seems to be, getting more people are interested in that, and there's more people who would sign up for another piece like that, but then how do you keep it enjoyable to keep making it, I just made a piece in fall, that was on the same vein as probably it's a kind of a big circle wreath. And I've made probably, I'm in the 4 or 5 range of different varying sizes, kind of like that donut shape. And so I've tried to make each one a little bit different, just to kind of keep, like the creative challenges coming. But then it also does feel like I was under a big deadline. So it was like production, okay, like I got to get this done. I got to, I can't have too many creative challenges or I might not succeed, so, I think it's like you're saying, I think creativity can be anything,
and then there's like balance, the balance between, okay, I'm going to backtrack. So someone said to me recently, if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotting. And and he was using this analogy for just to continuously grow.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that. I was like, God, that is kind of the mindset of business, and that's the mindset of this culture. Grow.
Yeah.
Do.
Yeah.
Produce. And there's such a resistance, repulsion to rotting, to composting, and how that is such an important aspect of nature and creativity, actually, is to let things compost and lay fallow and to not do. And it's just thinking about, when we come to this place, or when you come to this place, you're like, I'm producing, and there's the real desire to compost and lay fallow, but you're like, I need to produce. It's like that's that tension, and it's like, where do you find the balance between those two impulses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one comment, and then I actually have a question for Frank. One comment is like David Chang is a chef, and he talks about how like we actually need to build failure a little bit more into kind of like, I like to think about cooking a lot, like how like cooking industry is like thinking about craft, about like local, that kind of stuff. I think there's a relatability there, and I think that I've been thinking about that a lot, like kind of what you're talking about, like letting things go, failure, like trying things and being okay, like that we've kind of lost that like parameter structure of like you giving yourself some time to like not just keep growing or keep hitting, in the sense of like produce, you know, like that a little bit of kind of cultivating can be really helpful. And then my question to Frank is like, how do you handle that as a gallery? You know, like you're more on that side of, you know, like new shows and things like that. You know, like how do you kind of envision that?
In terms of like signal, in terms of like what clients are responding to and how to communicate that to artists?
Like that like growth, right?
Yeah.
Like how do you envision growth for, you know, like, because it's one selling work, but then I would imagine also community, right?
Yeah.
Like bringing artists to a collection of people to show a new image of beauty, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm fairly ambitious, not necessarily in the sense of like trying to fit, you know, some definition of success, but ambitious in the sense of like we do a lot. And sometimes it feels like too much, but I'm the kind of person that like when I dive into something, I kind of go hard. And, you know, that manifested like in having 2 gallery spaces for a little bit. That ended up being too much. We got forced out of one of the spaces, which ended up being great. And now we have one. We do 1 or 2 shows. We do at least 1, usually 2 shows a month. And we're a staff right now of 3, you know?
Yeah. That's amazing. That's impressive.
We really do a lot. And this year has been a real time of consolidation, of clarification. We hit 7 years in February. And, you know, I feel like that past 7 years, and maybe 6, has been like this push of just like, we got to get this thing off the ground. We were trying a bunch of stuff, you know, what are people going to respond to? I like this. Let's try this. Making it financially solvent, just like this big, just go, like not thinking too much and just, this moves me, let's go. And the past year has really felt like a time of like settling in, slowing that energy down and taking stock and just being like, okay, who are we now? Like what's working? Like what's not working? What are people responding to? What do we, if we move back into a kind of forward motion, like what do we want to pay attention to? What do we want to put into that energy, into that movement? So that's where we're at right now. And that feels really good. Because even though like we haven't slowed down like the pace of shows or anything, it's like, I feel like the focus is getting a little bit more internal of like the people that we've made bigger commitments to. It's like, oh, that was a good call. Let's continue, you know, things like that. Does that answer the question at all?
Yeah, no, I think it's perfectly answers the question, because it's like specifically what you guys are doing and how you guys are actually kind of, you know, you could be happenstancely doing that kind of like coming back to kind of like sharpen and that kind of thing. But I think those are all decisions, creative decisions that you guys are making, also in the creative decision of like just going for it and trying a whole bunch of things and seeing what'll stick, I think those are equally important,
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about what did you say the person's name was that talked about failure, that we need to embrace?
David Chang.
David Chang. Okay.
Yeah.
That we've lost our capacity to be with failure. And I'm thinking back to what I was saying about the tragedy and the comedy, that's like, what is failure? Ultimately when we think, oh, I failed. And then maybe 5 years down the road, if we have that ability to look and see moments in our timeline and our history and see how that linked up to where we are now, maybe that's not a failure anymore. Maybe that was maybe what looked like again compost or falling was actually this preparation for the next step. And it's such a tricky thing, because it's like, where are you going? Like, what's your goal? What are you, what is success? And that is always changing as well. And so then when that changes, then like, what is failure also changes, and everything changes.
What you just said, like, made me really think differently about how I speak about failure with students. Because I feel like sometimes you're like, you just need to fail a little bit, like get out of your comfort zone, right? I think is what we kind of try to say with like, just, like you're kind of sticking to your guns, like, so like fail a little bit more. But I don't actually think what you said makes so much more sense, which is like actually getting more comfortable with failure, like not it. We're not trying to like say like, oh, you should just mess up all of the time. Like what we're saying is like that sting shouldn't be so bad, right? Like you should be able to be like, oh, I want to try 10 things, kind of like Frank, what you were talking about. Like I want to try a bunch of different things, and I want to be okay with like, oh, that just didn't work, right? And that's okay, right? Like you can now do that again, like another 10, or and you can kind of lock into what actually is working for you, but that it's okay to try that stuff and then kind of define and reset, and that I think that can be really, really tough, is like, like when I was a full-time studio artist, like, when things didn't sell, or, when it was like, for me personally, like that was my livelihood, and that was really tough. So like, okay, like what can I do better? And I think I think that's a really interesting point of like, it can be contextual, and you just move forward and change. Letting go of that pressure,
Yeah. And it is so tricky when your livelihood is dependent upon it.
Yeah.
I got to pay rent. I got to feed myself. I could maybe have to feed other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and I felt like I've gotten better. It's not just like letting go of the full-time thing, but it's also the years go by where, the anxiety kind of drops down, and there's stuff like happenstance stuff where, I had one time I was talking to a gallery, and they were like, if it was just 6 inch smaller, I think the person would have gone for it. It's like, it just was the wall size, like it just didn't fit for the wall, and it's like, well, I can't control that, and that's okay, like that is what it is, like those things play a part, and you just kind of move on,
Yeah, I think about, if working with an artist and it not working out, and it's really challenging when interpersonal relationships, human relationships are involved in it too, and like, you take a risk, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and not everybody can handle that well, but that's very true about just like, as you make more mistakes as time goes on, you're like, oh, okay, this is how life works. I see. We're gonna fuck up a lot.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite thing, one of my favorite things, Curtis has many quotes that stick in my brain, but one day we were talking about some artist or something like that. And the group was not like enthused, right? And we're younger. And my favorite thing he once said was, he said, "There's a market for anything."
Yeah.
And I remember the way, it wasn't just like that statement, but it was the way he said it, in the sense of like, take that with like solace, actually, too. Like, like, you will find your market, they will find their market, like, it's just trying to find your audience, and that might not be your particular taste. But there's solace in that they will find some group that will enjoy their voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We for a moment watched this show called Make It at Market, which is a BBC production.
Oh yeah.
And the whole thing is artists come to this sprawling estate, and there's different art studios set up, and they are maybe they are in their career, but they want to take it to the next level. Maybe they're just starting out and they don't know what to do, but they essentially are paired with a successful artist in their medium, or some kind of mentor, and then they're given tasks to complete, and then they're given feedback about whatever they make. And I swear that what you just said, we learned watching this show, because we would see people making stuff that we're like, oh honey, how how are you gonna sell that? And by golly, they did. They found their people.
Yeah, totally. And it's like one of those things where you first, I think when for me personally, it was like, when I first heard it, I was like, whoa, like I was like, where is that gonna go? And then it's like kind of impressive, where you're like, no, you like. Another great quote that I have from my friend Susie Gonch, where she used to say, like, when you are 3 years into your career, like after grad school or whatever, that it gets easier. And I was always like, well, why? And I think it's just like, you're not going away, right? Like you are putting in the time, and you're dedicating time to then also show it to people, decide how to move forward. And I think that there's a power there, right? Like people are like, all right, like you're either going to find that voice, or people are going to be like, okay, this kooky person is still doing it. Like we actually maybe should start to pay attention.
This guy's still doing things with silver platters. I guess he's not going to give up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just wrote a text at the finish of a piece that I said, I don't want to look at another silver plated platter. It was like a big deadline. I was like, I don't want to look at another silver plated platter, but I already have the idea for the next piece. It's just like, I don't want to touch them, but I am already ready for what the next one looks like. Yeah.
Well, I think that gives a lot of direction to how artists should approach making, in terms of just sincerity and authenticity to their own vision. Right? It's like you're the only one that can see the world the way that you see the world. Nobody else.
Totally.
And that's your gift, and that's what artists, I think good artists are doing, is practicing putting that into their work.
Yeah.
And so like be devoted to that, and yes, it takes time to find the audience, and I think a lot of humility and like letting go of ideas and trying different things, but it's there,
Yeah.
If you're standing on a street corner screaming, your audience may be small, but it's there. There's some people that want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people might come and join you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then you have a
Currently,
movement.
Yeah.
A movement of screaming people.
Yeah. There's that Ira Glass quote that he talks about, like, all art is trying to like figure out your taste and understand it and give it merit and weight. Like that's like undergrad, or your starting of making something, is like you have an image in your brain that actually, like you're saying, Frank, is something worthwhile to hear in this world. It's just kind of trying to hone it and be able to send it out to the right people, to the right, in the right way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you went into school with studying jewelry. What is the bridge? The bridge from jewelry to
to making.
Yeah, to
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It was jewelry metal arts, which we learned fabrication and large scale, like kind of, like design kind of structure, so raising bowls, that kind of stuff. I had always kind of been interested in that side. My aunt and uncle are both kind of not, they make jewelry, but it's very kind of, mostly they make kind of larger, like tabletop wall pieces, that kind of stuff. I will also say I was a bench jeweler, but I'm going to give a little caveat because I think it plays a huge part in how I make work. David was a jack of all trades. We also did a lot of historical architectural fabrication, refab for Stanford. So that was like 2008, 2009. So a lot of things were being kind of like taken from colleges for scrap and stuff like that. I hope this is okay for me to say, but so we were recreating like drain spouts and things like that out of copper. So I was kind of learning how to make large scale objects, like using bend and breaks and things like that. I was learning some milling, and then I was learning how to like put those things with plumber solder, rather than like high temperature solder, which is like what jewelry does, right? And that context will play a key role down the road. And so I decided to. I wanted to go to grad school. My game plan at that point was, go to grad school, get a teaching job, and kind of I'd seen the model of my aunt and uncle and was like, that sounds great. I had done some teaching along the way, so I decided to go here, University of Wisconsin-Madison. I got here in 2009, and I was here with Kim Kreidler and Lisa Gralnick at the time. And what I loved about this program, and still really do love about this program, it's very, it's kind of multidisciplinary. And it kind of gives the power to the grad student, in this really cool way where you get to decide who you're working with, what your committee is going to look like. That can be any of the faculty. That could be, painting, that could be jewelry, that could be wood. And so I really love that to me, it felt like you kind of got to try being a full-time studio artist with like, being paid and taken care of, through the school, with also classes and things like that. So, and while I was here, I kind of started to look for kind of a bridge of what I had been really interested in my family's life, right? Like this kind of back to the tombstone, this kind of like communal object that we all have some sort of connection with, in some capacity, and how that distills a whole life down into like one thing. And the other thing that my family did was sell, we rented storage facilities out. So there was this kind of duality of like large life being culminated into one plot of land with a couple pieces of imagery, and then large collection of things being left by that person, right? Or kind of, quote unquote person. And how we live in this kind of culture of like having all of these consumerist objects. But we also, like we were saying when we first got on the call, that we also imbue value onto that, or meaning, and don't want to let them go, and so that culminated into, okay, what is this like communal object that I could like relate that to? And that was the trophy, metal object, communal, denotes value to a kind of group. And so I started doing research on the trophy, and the trophy begins with like pure altruism. It was kind of gifts for retirement, gifts for, like doing a great job, that kind of stuff. And then it starts to turn into competition. And so my thesis-ish kind of qualifier, we call it, was kind of denoting like how the trophy went from altruism to competition, and then kind of participatory, right? Like we have all these plastic trophies for everybody, and kind of like how the interesting growth of an icon, right? Like, and how we evolve that to be whatever the context we need it to be at the time. And I started making trophies out of tableware, like out of found objects, because that was the first gifts of trophies where it's like teapots, bowls, like the Stanley Cup was a pitcher, like it was just that top bowl. And then there's this amazing image on Google that you can look up like how the Stanley Cup has evolved. So it was like this little tiny plinth, and then it kind of got really weird, and then now we have this kind of big obelisk. And how that can have like a narration of like a culture, right? Like how you're like, all right, well now we're, like we're just the cup, and then all right, we're going to change. Like now we've seemed like we have some interest in here, and then now it's like this big thing of like we're going to be here forever. And so I started making, the last thing I'll say is I started making trophies out of tableware, and kind of fell upon the silver plated platter while I was at junk shops, and that kind of history of this object that's trying to look like another object, like they're mass produced. And then they're trying to look more valuable than they actually are. They're not silver. They're silver plated. They're brass or copper underneath. But it's really like the marks of who owned it that actually is like a value that you can actually like imbue and understand, like how much they cared for it, whether they just left it in the cupboard, that kind of stuff. And that was my last year of grad school, was kind of making a body of work just using the silver plate. And that was 15 years ago. And so I've only worked in silver plate for my full career. And so, that's been my only material other than kind of creative side things or teaching.
I have something I want to show you.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you were going to show him that.
Yeah. I hope you can read this.
Frank Rose, Best Boy presented, Award of Excellence in recognition of your devotion to spirit and to all your kitties. This is amazing. This is perfect. Award of Best Boy. This is so great. Meow, meow. This is awesome.
So that sits on my desk.
Is that for you?
Kara made this.
I made that for him.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
That's true altruism right there.
Right.
I'm taking it back to the origins of the trophy.
Yeah, let's bring it back. Let's get it back to its roots, Let's delete the participatory and get back to that pure altruism. That's really great. When did you have that made? When and why?
I think I got that for him maybe two birthdays ago. Yeah, I think 2 birthdays ago he got that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So you also do some printmaking. Do you ever have a desire to work in other materials, or do you feel like you're still plumbing the depths of silver plate?
That's a really good question. I have a really deep desire to kind of start trying some new material. And I think that's one of the great perks of this job is like getting to have a little bit of more dedicated time and some research funding from the school to kind of dedicate to that and direct to it. And I can talk a little bit like about my kind of isms, my desires right now. Right now I have this really deep desire to go into like learning about car fabrication. There's a couple places around here that kind of talk about sheet fabrication in that way. And I don't know what it is. It might be my dad, right? Like my dad's kind of like history with recreating, or kind of rebuilding a 67 Shelby. But I think it's again, like communal object, and kind of like recreating or kind of messing with that material in some way. And learning a little bit more for the students too, like how to like think about sheet fabrication, either on a big scale, small scale, that kind of stuff, has really got kind of, I'm jonesing to like jump into these, like there's like 2 or 3 day workshops that you can do on a weekend. But I will also say there is still like, there's this desire, and this will be my lead into that, which is there's still a love for kind of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The ecological impact of metal, and wanting to be respectful of kind of that use of material and how much that material is still very, very precedent in all our secondhand shops and our recycling centers, that kind of stuff. So there's still this desire to keep making in silver plate just because of how it's like 2 things. It's one is not wanting to impact the world ecologically, right? Like it's such a tough thing to do on mining in general, and that there's so much of it. Like I still, 15 years in, still can buy a silver plated platter for cheaper than a sheet of metal. Sometimes, like a 12 by 12 sheet of copper on Rio right now, I think is around $20, and I can sometimes get them for $7. And there's this really interesting dichotomy there for me that I just can't still get over. And I think that's where like the car thing kind of plays in, where I'm like, oh, I could see myself being really interested in kind of jumping into, second, like, junkyards and things like that. But it's fully, I really am kind of interested in a whole lot of different ventures, like collage work, like you were saying, Frank, like that plays into that kind of like history differently. And I think I'd need to just try it. Back to failure, right? Like just explore it and see what kind of gets kind of jumbled up and explored. It's just kind of dedicating. I've never been the best at dedicating time to like that failure, and I'm trying to be a little bit better at that lately. Yeah.
When you're talking, it made me think of there's a big lowrider culture here. Especially north of Santa Fe and Espanola, there's a lot of people that dedicate a lot of time to making these really fabulous cars. They'll do car shows around the plaza in Santa Fe as well. But it's amazing to see, somebody take these, 70s hoopties that are just the longest tank-like things you've ever seen, and just like, with the velvet and the, paint jobs and the hydraulics and
there's so many different little touches that go into those cars that are just kind of like all thought out, and it can be really, really beautiful.
Yeah. How far is Madison from Detroit?
That's a really good question. I think it's like a 6 or 8 hour drive.
So it's not super close.
Don't quote me on that. Yeah. I think it's because of the lake, we have to kind of go down to Chicago and then kind of start making our way. And Detroit's on the other side of Michigan.
Gotcha.
But I would love to go. And, if it weren't for this, our new little one coming into the world, I would go to Snag Detroit, which is actually our due date, which is pretty hilarious. So Christine was like, are you going to go? And I was like, I don't think anybody, if I was there and I was like, yeah, my wife is due, but I'm here, I was like, everybody would be like, why are you here? So I will be missing this year.
Do people ever send you their plates or their spoons?
Yeah. So that's so I started making the prints in grad school. I always say, have your show with a printmaker. They're the sweetest people in the whole wide world. So I had a friend in grad school help me do the first prints. And so I was kind of trying those. And then when I did a residency at Houston Center for Contemporary Craft, and I kind of came up with the idea of, it would be a really interesting way it was a open door residency. So we had our doors open to the public, and it was a way to kind of get to know people in and around the community. And so I kind of was like, what would be interesting is if people have them, just to donate them to me, I'd print them for them. So I started a donation drive at the beginning of that residency and did it for quite some time. I still kind of say that I'll do it, but it was really got a little tough there because I just didn't have a big enough press, and just kind of dedicating, like, trying to get a whole bunch of them and trying to print them. So I'm very much behind on some of those, but it was really great because then I got to learn more of the story of what the owners were, because on eBay, I buy them mostly on eBay, and I don't know anything about who own them other than the funny shipping that I get sometimes, like newspapers and stuff like that. I got a pizza box once, which is pretty hilarious. But it was really great because I got to learn a bit more about, like, I had like, just an example. I had like somebody come in, give me their mom and dad's platters. They had 3 siblings, and they didn't want the platter anymore, but they really cared about how much their parents cared about that platter. And so I printed one for each of the family members. And, I don't really sell those, the donation plates, because I want them to be their family's collection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they get the marker of, when that piece became, not valuable to whomever owned it, Yeah.
Mm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you come technically? Is there any particular challenge with using silver platters for print media?
Not really. I mean, the only thing is, it's all stamped, so it's not like the biggest. It's a deep, like, drive, right? Like you get a deep ink well, but you're not really getting like a good bite. So if you get that stamp too hard, you get some pretty open channels that won't hold the ink so well. So you have to be pretty good at like kind of not being so heavy handed on getting the ink out. But I always say I'm not the best printmaker in the world. I don't know much about like inking, like in the sense of like mixing inks, like how to change inks to like make them more viscous, to make them, I just try to keep paper clean as much as I can when I'm printing. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm curious about something you said early on. It's been circulating in me. You said that when you were heading into this career path, this choice, that there was something you said, oh God, I'm nervous. I'm worried that I'm going down the nostalgia path.
Yeah.
And that kind of struck a chord in me. And I'm curious about that, because actually I'm curious why that was a resistance. And I'm also curious what nostalgia means for you. And also because it feels to me that your work is in the realm of nostalgia, but maybe not in the way that you were reluctant about.
Yeah. What I'll say is a couple things. One, when I first got kind of that nostalgia thing, it was such a dirtier word, I think, back in the art world at that time. So like I came into grad school and I remember kind of being like kind of talked about that, like, oh, like, and I think what it really was like looking back at a time and kind of still being like, oh, those were the better days, and I kind of, that's the thing that I kind of like picked up on and was like, oh, I actually do feel like that is a really true statement. Like, in the sense of like, I think I'd rather look back on that time and, have it define us in some way. So like, for example, like one of my other favorite movies is Midnight in Paris. And it's like Owen Wilson being nostalgic for like Paris in the 1940s, and not to give it away, but he finally does get to go back to sci-fi, like does get to go back into the 1940s, and they're nostalgic for the 1920s, like that there's always kind of looking back at the past and being like, oh, it was better. And I think that's purely contextual, right? Like who is it better for? And what is it that was maybe you think was better? Because I do think that I guess my optimistic view is that we are getting better, but there's just kind of lumps along the way, and there might just be things that you think you wish we had kind of held on to a little bit more. And so I think I love the conversation of nostalgia, and that notion of being lost in that kind of loss, but I also think that there's this beautiful, like, I don't know, sometimes I talk to people about like also being nostalgic for the current moment, like when you're like so enjoying something and already knowing that it might pass, is also like a type of nostalgia too. Like where does that line of history kind of start to taper off,
During the first year, I think it was the first year in the pandemic, I was at a park with some friends, and we we're all sitting, 6 to 10 feet away from each other in the park. And one of the friends, we were talking about, oh, this is so hard. And she goes, who knows? We might look back at this time and go, those were the good times.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I bring that up sometimes when I'm lamenting the current state of things. I'm like, hey, Amina, you remember when you said
you might be right. I think there's a really great moment in that, right? Of like trying to be present, right? Of like, things were not easy during COVID, and we had to do so many things on the fly and try to figure out if they were good or not. I mean, on that same note, my wife and I were talking about how like we had the like little line, to like clean the veggies before we brought them in, and all of those things that we're just trying to figure it out, and hopefully we're doing stuff well. And I think just the what am I trying, like the demeanor and care of that, I think is what we should kind of lock onto. You know?
Well, and I think too, with nostalgia and with looking back, I'm just going to circle back. I'm going to tie everything to everything that we said. But
Perfect.
Going back to the comedy and the tragedy, I think what you do recognize, what unconsciously or whatever is going on is we got through that, and so there is this sense of those were the good times, because you kind of forget all of the hardships, and you forget the existential angst, and what you remember is, in some ways, it's like, I got through that. And I can look back at the washing the vegetables. I can look back at the I would throw a blanket over my mom before I would hug her when it first started. And just but at the time, I know, I was just absolutely losing it. But I can look back and I got through that. Whereas in present time, we don't know. We don't have that sense of we're going to get through this. Yeah. And so that's that's like a part of nostalgia.
Joy.
You know how it ended. You know how it ended.
You know how it ended. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think but there was another thing I always heard, which was whenever you go through a tough time, 6 months down the road, usually you're like, oh, it was actually probably a good thing that I went through that, but you don't know it because you're in the hard time, you're dealing with every single event and hardship that comes with each one of those decisions, Yeah. And I think trying to keep that in mind of okay, this is hard right now, but in 6 months, I'll be happy that I made all of those little moves and decisions and that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember who said this, but they were talking about that the past is bright. Something like the past is lit and the future is dark. It's you can see the past, but we can't see the future. And so it's this feeling into the darkness.
Yeah. The uncomfortable. Just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
there should be trophies for that.
There should
totally. For all of us.
Yeah. That should be the participatory trophy.
Right?
We're all just figuring it out.
You're here.
We're all still clawing into the dark.
You're human trophy.
You're human.
You're human. Congratulations. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you, Jaydan. This went by really fast.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me be, thank you for having the show. And I hope that I do get to get out there at some point. This time it'll be with a little one. Yeah. And then thank you also for letting me be late. I'm sorry. Someday my brain will decide that we're in Central Time.
And then maybe you'll move somewhere else at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Well, enjoy, and I look forward to hearing about when the little one comes into the world.
Will do.
Sweet.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Okay.